Man, I don't care if it's a Trump account, a Biden account, an Obama account, a Bush account. These people do not care about you. They don't care about your child getting a piece of capitalism or anything of that nature. If people really cared about your kid in austerity, they would decrease the deficit, but that's not going to happen because we live in a debt-based Ponzi scheme. I came across this post earlier today on Twitter, and it talks about how if no Trump account contributions are made by age 18, what your kid could have versus if you have maximum contributions, how much money you can make. But nobody ever talks about how the dollar is printed out of thin air and your dollars buy you nothing. All of these accounts are just a honeypot for individuals to dump exit liquidity on the kids, on your Social Security, on your pension or your 401k, etc., instead of attacking the main problem, which is that the fiat currency is the issue. The dollar is backed by nothing and it's created out of thin air. It's just a fact. Get nice little virtue signaling posts like this. The SpaceX president, she's going to donate some of her stocks to the Trump accounts. Well, remember, like I always say, you are the exit liquidity. They'll dump the stale trash on the kids' Trump accounts and the 401ks since they changed the rules. So now all of a sudden SpaceX is included in the NASDAQ 100 on day zero when that doesn't happen because companies have to be profitable. But they can now have an exit liquidity off-ramp that's been approved, right? This has nothing to do with politics. This just has to do with the fact that you don't understand that it's a big club and you ain't in it. And you are the exit liquidity, especially when the dollar is debt backed by nothing. And all of these pump and dumps are essentially a way for the insiders to dump their shares on these other accounts. But they're selling you the narrative. Over the weekend, there was a lot in the news, specifically from the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, talking about President Trump's leadership and how we're on a path to unprecedented economic growth, lasting dollar dominance, they say, fiscal strength and stability. And essentially, to mark that historic moment, issuing shares with President Trump's signature, which is all just theatrics at the end of the day. But the main point I want to highlight here is the fact that you're looking at a note, a Federal Reserve note. And what you see is when you look at any dollar, $100 bill, $10 bill, it says this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private, right? This note, and a note is a debt backed by nothing. It's printed out of thin air. Now, if you know anything about the Constitution, which most people don't even realize that the Constitution is violated time and time again, but it talks about how nobody, right, can emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver, coin a tender in payment of debts. However, I just showed you the example that on the dollar bill that you earn, the $100 bill that I just showed you, it's a reserve note that's backed by nothing and it's paper. It's not backed by coin, which it used to be. It's not backed by gold. It's just printed out of thin air. Now, if I bring this back to my original example, understanding how these Trump accounts are being framed as a way to give kids a slice of capitalism, how do you think that works when essentially the dollar that is being used to fund these accounts and also individuals that are insiders at these companies, like the president of SpaceX, is going to use that as an exit liquidity off-ramp to dump that on the child account and the 401k. This has nothing to do with Trump. They would have did the same thing if it was Biden, if it was Obama, if it was Bush. It doesn't matter. It could name any president or future president. They'll name the account what they want. But you don't understand what's going on because you actually don't realize that the paper is melting ice cubes backed by nothing, and hard money is the only off-ramp in a fiat-based system that is essentially meant to enslave you and print and debase your time and energy and sell you the narrative that this is something that's going to save your child. I'm going to leave you with this quote from George Washington, where he says, "Paper money has had the effect in your state that will ever have, to ruin commerce, to oppress the honest, and to open the door to every species, fraud, and injustice." Let that sink in.